One, they finally did it. They launched the war against Zyn, but it's not trench warfare, it's guerrilla warfare. Chuck Schumer, the highest elected official of Jewish descent in America, is not focused on anti-Semitism on college campuses. Instead, he's focused on Zyn, and it's a guerrilla warfare. I'm left stumbling around Dallas looking for peppermint and having to settle for that stepped-on smooth. 2, do presidents have immunity from prosecution? And can you tell someone's politics by looking at their face? AI says yes. So we'll ask the guys of the Ruthless Podcast. And 3, the highs and lows, the bottom of entertainment, naked attraction, and the height of entertainment, the NFL draft. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, on the Fox News Facebook page, and always on demand by subscribing at Apple or Spotify, or if you prefer to watch me while I talk, you can always subscribe right there on YouTube. It's on the text description. It's in a little link right below this live stream on YouTube. Hit subscribe. You can see the Will Cain Show in YouTube Shorts. Go back and see exclusive interviews like that with The Rock or Destiny. Just hit subscribe to the Will Cain Show. It's probably my most favorite time of the year. It's a little bit like Christmas morning. It's the first round of the NFL draft, and I'm going to set you up for what is the best entertainment in America. But not before I cue you in on the biggest trash out there in entertainment. But as is always the case, I do have some thoughts. I have some insight, maybe even some redeeming observations about naked attraction. All that's coming up in just a moment here on the Will Cain Show. But let us start with story number 1. I always pictured that the Zyn insurrection would be more noble. I pictured us making a stand against Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer. Chuck Schumer, again, the highest-ranking publicly elected Jew in the history of America, not so much focused on the anti-Semitism at Columbia, but instead ensuring that New Yorkers, and for that matter, Americans, cannot get access to the little nicotine pouch that has no relationship to tobacco, and therefore no relationship to cancer, that has grabbed a hold of young, and in my case, old men across America. If you don't know what Zyn is, trust me, your teenager does. If you don't know about Zyn, just ask a college dude. Everyone. I mean, I'd say right now the 2 biggest unwritten stories in medicine that are just flying under the radar, you just could walk around in society and ask, is that person on this or is that person on that, are Ozempic and Zyn. And the answer for most women is yes, they're on Ozempic. And the answer for most men is yes, they have a little nicotine pouch in their cheek. It's called Zyn. But here's the thing. Zyn is under attack. There's a lawsuit in San Diego alleging they're targeting minors with their flavors. Again, to state what needs to be known, there's really no negative health effects of a pure nicotine pouch. Cancer is caused by tobacco. The problem is the delivery mechanism. It's drawing smoke into your lungs. It's even, as has been the case admittedly throughout my life, putting a pinch of tobacco in your bottom lip. That is the relationship to cancer, tobacco. Nicotine has no relationship that we know of to cancer. It might have a relationship to an increased bit of high blood pressure. But, you know, what doesn't have some negative health benefits? And on the whole big curve of things, nicotine is not the worst thing to ever happen to someone. Now, that being said, I'm not proud. I'd like to quit because I have no control. It's got a hold of me, and I don't like being undisciplined. And here's the thing. I thought the Zyn insurrection against this government attack on Zyn, by the way, now owned by Philip Morris after buying it from Swedish Match, would be much more noble. But here I am, man, going into convenience stores and gas stations in Dallas saying, I'll take a can of Peppermint 6, and the clerk inevitably looks at me and goes, sorry, man, no. You know, there's no, and did I do an accent? I did do an accent because I like truth and accuracy. They're out, and all they've got left is coffee and smooth. So I did smooth for the first time, out on coffee. Don't like my mouth to taste like syrup. And you know, like Bubbles in The Wire, I'm over here taking the knockoff because that's how it's got a hold of me. And immediately did I realize there'll be no insurrection. We're just going to be zombies shuffling around asking for on soon. Do you have any of that rogue? This is horrible, man. It's bad. And like everything else in America, they did it surreptitiously. They did it under the covers. Now, the story is there's an inventory problem. I don't know. Maybe that's due to popularity. Again, I'm telling you, it's super popular. Maybe the demand, as the Wall Street Journal was written up recently, is just so out of sight that Philip Morris can't keep up with, 25-year-old Red Wing wearing dudes out there who need a pinch after coffee and before a drink. Maybe that's a sign of big business, but I have a feeling there's something else going on here. That's where I would lean on tinfoil Pat, producer of the Will Cain Show. There's something, if you squint your eyes, read between the lines, there's something going on here. It's guerrilla warfare. It's really, really, uncivil type of stuff here. The attack on Zyn. All right. Did you know that AI says they can predict whether or not you're liberal or conservative based upon your face? Plus, Donald Trump is before the Supreme Court of the United States to answer the question of whether or not a president has immunity from criminal prosecution. Let's get into all of that with the guys of the Ruthless Podcast next on The Will Cain Show.
From the Fox News Podcasts Network.
Hey there, it's me, Kennedy. Make sure to check out my podcast, Kennedy Saves the World. It is 5 days a week. Every week, we check in with Jimmy Fallon, bring in authors for the book club, and even treat some of your favorite Fox personalities to a very special happy hour. Download and listen at foxnewspodcast.com or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast.
Kennedy Saves the World. America's listening to Fox News.
The XFL and the USFL merged together to create one powerful spring football league called the UFL. These players are going to play hard-nosed, intense football, passionate football. And caught. They're going to ball out.
Week 5 of the United Football League, Birmingham, Houston, or San Antonio, Arlington, Saturday at 7 Eastern on Fox.
Kick it off, baby. Let's rock.
I'm Dana Perino, co-host of The Five and co-anchor of America's Newsroom. Join me for my podcast, Perino on Politics. Every Monday, I'm going to talk to people I trust in politics as they tell me what they're seeing and thinking in the 2024 election cycle. This week, I'm joined by founder and executive director of Power the Future, Daniel Turner, for a look at how we can advocate for a cleaner Earth while strengthening U.S. energy independence. Available now on Apple, Spotify, and FoxNewsPodcast.com.
Should a president have immunity from criminal prosecution? That's the question today for the Supreme Court of the United States in relation to Donald Trump. That's next here on The Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, on the Fox News YouTube channel, the Fox News Facebook page. Subscribe, Apple, Spotify, or on YouTube. They are the hosts of the very popular Ruthless Podcast, and they're joining me now on The Will Cain Show. It is Josh Holmes, Comfortably Smug, Michael Duncan, and John Ashbrook. Fellas, great to have you again on here on the Will Cain Show.
Will, what an electric opener, by the way.
Yeah, I don't think since Letterman someone's had an opener that good.
I mean, this is just first-rate material. I can't imagine anything I'd rather less talk. I mean, I want to talk about all of it all the time. Zinsurrections, NFL drafty mixed in.
Yeah. This is basically our discussion over the past week. So.
Oh, this is fantastic.
I'm hyped.
I'm embarrassed, John. I know you're a fellow Zimbabwean, that you're a Zinner, a Zinfandel. I don't know what your flavor is, but man, this is a step down for me. I'm telling you, you're out. You go to the store, and the clerk is super sad. He's like, "I'm sorry, my man, no peppermint." I'm like, "What do you have? What do you have?" I'm like, "Okay." I almost walked out yesterday, John. He's like, "I've got smooth and coffee." And I've done my dance with coffee, out on coffee. And so I left the store. I started to walk out of the store. I'm like, nah, I don't do those things. And then, he kind of, as I'm walking out, goes, "Inventory problems, weeks." And I'm like, "Weeks? Give me that can of smooth."
Can't have it.
It's bad news over here in Zimbabwe.
I got plenty of peppermint. I can just mail it to you. I mean, I'm happy to share, buddy. I'm really happy to share.
You missed. We did a road trip a few weeks ago, and on the way back, we had to stop and get gas. We had like a kind of a tour bus type situation. Smug gets off the bus, and he's gone for like 10 minutes. And we're like, well, what the hell's going on? He just like abandoned us. And I mean, is he in the rest facility? Was he? He comes out, and he's carrying 2 massive like moving boxes filled with Zyns.
Cases.
Yeah.
I buy them in bulk at distributor
Really?
level.
A case?
The clerk had to contact the owner of the store to make sure it was okay to go in back and just pull these things out for him.
I mean, these boxes were like the size of like a pizza box, just full of Zyn.
So I mean, that's
Really?
the thing is, you don't know what the stupid government is going to do with this stuff. Like, I remember there was a day when they were going to take away what's the vape one?
Juul?
Oh,
Juuls.
Juul, yeah.
Yeah, they were going to make the Juul pods
Juul.
illegal. So I hit up every store in town and cleared out their inventory. And I'm sitting on like, a 3-year supply of that. So if it comes to any nicotine delivery mechanism, like I will outlast the roaches in a nuclear war.
Yeah, the thing I think is super interesting about Zyn, a lot of people talk about like, it's a great way to relax. Maybe it's nice after you've had a beer, to relax with a Zyn or whatever. But like in the same way that we study the loss of economic productivity during like March Madness, I feel like we need to study the inverse. And that is there's nothing better than like a cold brew iced coffee in the morning with a Zyn 6 to be super, super productive for the first 2 hours of
like
the day.
cocaine.
It's the best. The best.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that's like the entry level.
Do you all
approach.
four?
I like a Celsius and 2 Sixers,
All four?
one on each side, and get rolling.
So that'll leave you with the shakes. All 4 of you guys in? All of you guys?
Yeah.
Yes?
Yeah. I got my
So-
my citrus right here.
Yeah, sometimes I go back and forth. I like a Camel
Yeah.
snooze. And so I just, sometimes when I'm playing golf, I pop a snooze in. But
Here's the thing. I'm not proud. I actually want to quit. I want to quit every day. And I want to quit about 1 p.m. No, 2 or 3 p.m. That's when it starts. Because Smug, it was Michael that said, the best one of the day is the morning after coffee. Mm-hmm. It is the best. That I never want to give that one up. And I like the one after dinner a lot. I don't want to give up that one either. But the ones in between are not enjoyment. They're necessity. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm not doing it because I'm excited about it. It's because my body is saying, do this now. And then I'm on the roller coaster. And I don't like the roller coaster. I'm on the energy roller coaster all day long. And, my Fox and Friends host, Pete Hegseth, also, by the way, fellas, a dude, he vaped and did coffee. He's quit it all, which he's totally an all in or all out personality. But he's like, my energy is even. And that's what I do wish that my energy was even throughout the day, because I am on a Zyn roller coaster throughout the day. So I would like to quit. I just don't want it I don't want it at the hands of the government's force. I just want to choose. I'd rather be personally disciplined.
I mean, that's understandable, but I say sit back, relax, and enjoy the ride. If they're going to take it away at some point, I might as well enjoy it while I've got it. You're right about the Chuck Schumer thing, by the way.
Yeah,
he declared full-on war against it. It was unclear what he was going to do about it. Maybe you figured this out with the inventory piece of it, but it seemed like it was a bro uprising in the making.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are all in, I think, the D.C. area, so I don't know if this has hit you, but it is a thing in Texas, and I've now spoken to some guys on social media like, now there's a real inventory issue. And I don't know what's causing the inventory issue, but we're hard up. California and Massachusetts have outlawed flavors, so they're used to living this life of poverty. But here in Texas, this is a new thing, and so I guess I'll be having to buy it in New York on the weekends. Let's talk about presidential immunity. This is actually a hard one, guys. I think maybe not for you, but so today at the Supreme Court, Donald Trump's attorneys, because he's stuck in court in Manhattan, will be arguing for presidential immunity to dismiss the case, Jack Smith's January 6th case against Donald Trump. The presidents should have immunity from things done while they're in office. From criminal prosecution. And, the argument is if you don't have immunity, then the opposition power, when they come into power, can use the DOJ and then as to go after a former president. And then as such, every presidency will be colored by decisions through the prism of criminal liability. And that's not how you want a president thinking or doing while he's making decisions that are supposed to be in the best interest of America. Makes a lot of sense. It also makes sense that, there are some situations where I don't know about presidential immunity from prosecution. Like, this is the requirement of doing this from a legal analysis. We can't just say, as applied in this case to Donald Trump. You got to think about it as applied to any potential future president and whatever actions he may take.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, it is a very delicate balance, right? And I think this has been litigated a number of times over the years. I think most recently during the Bush administration as it pertained to presidential immunity with national security decisions. And I think very clearly the court ruled in that case that the president does have immunity from prosecution because they were acting in the best interest, as they saw it, of national security and the American people. And that's clear cut. But as you laid out, I mean, the other side of this coin is you could expand that beyond that to get into some real hairy territory where people are openly conducting criminal acts. And if there's nothing you can do about it, that's the other side of the coin. And so the court here has to find a balance. I think they probably would have loved to avoid this question, to be honest with you. Coming into it, I think through the lower court decisions and everybody else, you listen to guys like Turley on Fox and everything, they think that the broad sort of definition that Trump's team's laying out is probably not going to hold a ton of water, in that they're more likely than not to rule against him. But they're not just going to rule against him. At least I don't think so, because it's precedent setting for, as you said, many presidents to come.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is I think it's just like Holmes described, is there's this wide area of where it can be argued. And of course, the Trump legal team is trying to expand it as much as possible. And, the question really comes down to what leeway does a president get in order to execute their duties in office? Because if they completely shut down the ability of a president to be president, I mean, the next thing you know, you could have murder charges against Barack Obama for drone striking a U.S. citizen. Was the guy a terrorist? Sure. But hey, I mean, if you don't have a judicial precedent of being able to unilaterally kill an American as U.S. president, then it's a murder charge.
So I think that's a good point, Smug. But back to Holmes's point here is, I think what we're ultimately going to get is a clarification from the United States Supreme Court of what qualifies as an official act of the office of the presidency. And that's the most important thing. And I think the wrinkle in this case is, that Jack Smith case is about what Donald Trump did after the election in challenging the election results. Could you call that an official act of the president of the United States, regardless of who it is? Mm-hmm. That's going to be an open question. I think it's going to be a hard thing for the Trump legal team to prove it is.
Yeah, but whether or not this is dismissed because of immunity, I mean, I think the real crux of this particular case is all centered upon the First Amendment. It's interesting, whether or not Donald Trump was exercising free speech and whether or not that First Amendment protected right can be punished in a criminal court of law. He wasn't calling for direct violence. I mean, the standard of the Supreme Court is Brandenburg, direct calls for physical violence. I don't think that anyone can make the case that something like that happened on January 6th. It's funny you bring up Obama and droning an American citizen. Smug, I remember that. I was on CNN back then, and that was almost like a little bit of an appetizer to where we have arrived today. It was this issue that divided politics, not cleanly on right and left, right? All of a sudden it's does the president have the power to kill an American citizen? And like you said, yes, he was a terrorist, but without, does an American citizen not have the rights of American citizenship when abroad? And has he sacrificed those by engaging in acts of terrorism? I just was thinking back when you were talking about that, how the whole world is kind of scrambled now. That was one of the first scrambles when it came to foreign policy and Democrats and Republicans.
No, I had no question about it. And I mean, look, there's a lot of war on terror era stuff happening there, whether it was renditions or Guantanamo or whatever, where the courts actually laid out a pretty good predicate for a whole bunch of things here. But what they didn't ultimately decide is how far presidential immunity goes. And in this particular case, I mean, as you said, the Jack Smith stuff rises and falls with how this decision is made. It will not speak to the facts or the fact pattern of post-election 2020. It will not speak to a First Amendment component. It will not speak to anything other than this very narrow question as to whether or not a president, while serving as president in the commission of potential crimes, is actually liable for those crimes. And, I reiterate that because I think it's important for everybody to understand, like, each one of these cases is building upon the ability to prosecute a larger case, which at some point, we may end up hearing. May not. I mean, it's been going on forever, and they may not get to it at all. If they elect President Trump president in November, my guess is he's probably got some ideas about where that case goes ultimately. But that's ultimately whether or not you think that Donald Trump is guilty of crimes or not. We're a long way, other than New York, from getting into that conversation at all.
Let's lean into this idea of scrambled political lines for just a moment. I didn't produce and plan to talk to you guys about this, but looking at the four of you guys sitting there, I know you have a divergent set of opinions, at least, yeah. You guys aren't of all one monolithic mind. Yeah. And I don't want to do this for too long because I've done it for the last 2 days on my show. 2 days ago, I had David Sachs, VC investor, PayPal, noted dove and skeptic of the war in Ukraine, on my show to not just make his case, but I played devil's advocate. I'm sure I played it poorly. I'm sure I failed for any hawk to adequately push back on David Sachs. But I had that on, and it caused quite a bit of reaction, And again, it was like the left and the right mad at that conversation, mad at platforming David Sachs. But beyond the platforming debate, which I find stupid, I am kind of curious. What is the like spectrum of opinion there sitting at your table on the American interest in the war in Ukraine?
Well, I think we've ranged.
Yeah,
right? I
it's
mean,
a pretty wide spectrum, I'd say.
Smug is probably, I would say, the most soft on terror.
Yeah. I don't want my tax money spent. The first border we should secure is our own. That's basically it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm maybe the most aggressive. Duncan, we found in the fields of libertarianism and has sort of migrated closer towards a center position,
well,
I think.
I think I'm just kind of pragmatic about the whole thing. I don't like the fake arguments that are being made in the debate of, oh, well, we can't, help Ukraine defend its country because of the national debt. I don't think that argument actually holds water. The argument on the libertarian right, I think, is really they don't think we have any business being there in the first place, which is a fine argument. But what I also don't like from that sort of David Sachs, Dove world here is the sort of minimizing what has actually happened in Ukraine and talking about it as a territorial dispute in these oblasts in, the eastern part of Ukraine. It's like we all got that MIB, the Men in Black thing, and we forgot that Vladimir Putin tried to march on Kyiv. He tried to topple the government of Ukraine. So his ambitions are far greater than this dispute over 4 provinces in Ukraine that are Russian speaking. We should just be open-eyed about that. But do I ultimately think this latest aid package is the thing that's going to break Vladimir Putin and they're going to regain all their territory? I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah, I think we had David Sachs on the show at one point, which I'm glad that you had him on because I think it's so important to have this range of views in the Republican Party. Not everybody's monolithic. Not everybody's a big Trump person. Not everybody's a big Romney person. There are so many different points of view on our side, and it's important to have the conversation, which is kind of the point of our show, to be honest with you. I mean, my own view on this, I grew up in the 80s rooting against the Russians. I have a hard time not rooting when there's a chance to take shots at the Russians and we don't have boots on the ground actually executing it. I also agree with Smug. I don't understand why on earth we're not taking our own border more seriously, and I think that our own border should have been a big part of anything that moved to spend money on something that's happening over in Ukraine. But I don't have a problem with Ukrainians shooting Russians.
Yeah, I think that's probably
it's just. I think, man, to Duncan's point, I do have questions about Putin's ultimate ambitions. I don't think he's like Mr. Nice Guy. I think he is trying to reestablish spheres of influence that give him a buffer of protection that historically Russia has wanted against Europe. I don't know what that means. I don't think that means necessarily he's going to try to roll tanks through Poland. But I recognize his ambitions exist. I just don't know how malignant they are, and specifically how malignant they are to the American interest, like how it serves America to be concerned about the future of Lithuania. You know, I don't think history repeats. It may rhyme, but like, I find the hyperbole of he's Hitler, he's going to roll, you got to stop him, you know, at the Sudetenland. I find that not compelling. I find the propaganda, as you point out, I think you said it, Smug, I find it just, when you treat Ukraine like you treated COVID, and I don't want to be reactionary, but all my antennas go up. Like, if your response to anybody that goes, hey, maybe we should debate, you know, war, if your response is wave the Ukrainian flag, yell shut up, and censor me off the internet, I'm like, that's not a very strong argument. I don't know. It's just weird.
I think it's,
I don't want to be reactionary.
Right,
I don't want to react to their passion. What's that?
I think that's entirely right. I think there's an awful lot of people that fall into the category that you just described, right? I mean, how many times can you be lied to by your government and believe what they're saying about something as significant as war and peace, right? So I think any kind of skepticism should be welcomed in anything that involves life and death, whether it's in this country or anything else. I think the one piece that everybody sort of minimizes here is how the world fits together and how American interests aren't just blood and treasure of the moment. It is the spheres of influence around the world. Like, it was hard to mistake when Chinese President Xi decided to make a total alliance with Putin in this war against Ukraine, knowing that he is also staring at Taiwan, knowing that it came within months of us disastrously pulling out of Afghanistan, giving up a whole bunch of resources in the process, not only just American military equipment, but a whole bunch of different mining and resources within the region that the Chinese have now sort of gobbled up and begun selling back to us. And all kinds of people who are now reliant upon Russia or China or Iran, which clearly don't have our best interests at heart, for their economic well-being, right? So, like, I mean, a big problem with this at the outset of the Russian-Ukrainian war was the fact that Germany, because some 13-year-old crazy lady had convinced the government there to basically be entirely energy reliant upon Russia. So they couldn't figure out how they could actually be angry about a existential threat perhaps to their borders because they were relying on the people that were doing the existential threat thing. And like that begins to cascade. And I know that that's like, you know, you're accused of globalism and you're accused of but it's important to think about because American markets, like cars, for example, take Joe Biden's theory that we ought to eliminate the gas-powered car here in America by 2032. That's a real proposal. They really have that. If we were to do that, we would be entirely reliant upon lithium mines and the batteries manufactured in Taiwan and China.
And the rare earths that are in Afghanistan.
And the rare earths that are in Afghanistan that we just turned over, by the way, to the Chinese.
Yeah.
And our economy, your ability to get from point A, little as get A to B in this country is entirely reliant upon a foreign power that doesn't have your best interest at heart. That's why all this stuff matters from my perspective.
And I find that one of the more compelling arguments. I said this to Sachs. I had Senator Mark Wayne Mullen on my show, and he kind of made that like America first interest of like, well, you know what? Ukraine's pretty rich in resources and minerals, and we want them. And I'm like, well, okay, I'm not afraid of that argument. That at least makes some sense, you know? When Trump said we should have taken the oil in Iraq, I'm like, makes sense. Should we have kept the minerals in Afghanistan? Yeah. After 20 years of war, makes sense. But I do think that you need to make that argument honestly to the American public, and it needs to be offset against how much of this can we actually do at home? Do we need to be involved in these things? Because we're pretty resource rich ourselves. So, I mean, you know, I don't know which side that debate weighs out on, but I'm willing to have that debate. Just don't wave the Ukrainian flag and yell at me that we're protecting freedom like we did in Iraq.
I think we need to we need to, take the Ukrainian wheat fields and make them Ukrainian Zyn fields, and we can solve two problems at once.
We can knock two birds out of the air with one stone. That's a hell of an idea.
There we go.
Can you make nicotine out of wheat?
Now you got me, Duncan.
to kind of tie all this together, and also when Holmes mentions Afghanistan, I think the elephant in the room is kind of, I'd say, like the trauma and the bad taste left in the mouths of Americans following Iraq and Afghanistan, and seeing that over 20-year experience of foreign policy. And for a lot of folks, the problem can be distilled down to something as simple as we didn't have a defined mission statement. What was the goal we were trying to accomplish, so that once we can check that box, we know that's what we needed to get done, and it's over. And so
this president is unable to make it, which is part of the problem, right? I mean, that's why
we've never been told what is our purpose. Are we trying to topple Vladimir Putin? Are we trying to take back every inch of land? That's like, we don't know what our money is being spent on. So that's extremely frustrating.
Right.
And especially after we see, okay, well, we've already made significant investments in the past, and then now the Taliban's driving around in the Humvees we paid for.
Right.
Right. Let's keep scrambling political lines. So I think this is my favorite artificial intelligence story. So apparently artificial intelligence can take a look at your face and tell your politics, which I love, because that's what we're all doing anyway. We're all looking at each other going, look at him. He's a huge lib. Let's see if we can do it. I have my producers, like, I'm going to say right now, John's got a conservative face. Like, you just look at him and you can tell, dude's conservative, right? Me and Smug are suspect. You take a look at us and you go, I don't know about that guy.
It's the shades that do it.
Let's take a look. I have my producers. My producers pick some photos, and now I told them I don't want you to go after somebody. We're not going after anybody, but they're not famous, but they're not nobodies either. So there's your first face. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Yep.
Liberal or conservative, for those listening on podcast, we're looking at I'd say a 60-year-old man, full head of gray hair, rimless eyeglasses, and what I would say is a happy smile. And you know what? Because of that smile, he's liberal. That's my vote.
Huh.
Oh.
I don't know, man. This is the kind of guy, he raised a family. He's got a couple of kids. He got them through college. He's got a business there because clearly he's got a suit and tie on. Maybe that's not his face. I shouldn't be looking at it. But he kind of looks like a dude who's sort of towards the end of his career. He's kind of wrapping things up. He's got a big smile on his face about it. Things have generally gone pretty right. I have never seen a liberal of that age smiling.
Yeah.
I have never, because something is terribly wrong. They've screwed something up. They're regretting it. They're upset about the way that life has treated them, even if they're very wealthy.
Yeah.
And they don't do a lot of stuff.
Well, I'd also point out that photo has a brown background, a brown suit, and a brown tie. He went totally monochromatic here, which tells me conservative guy at a JCPenney photo shoot.
There you go.
I'm going conservative.
Wait, Duncan. Those are great observations. But you know what? I think I was subconsciously looking at the same things, and I was thinking professorial. That's why I went liberal. He's a little professorial with the earth tones.
Yeah.
Except the horn rim. If he's going professorial, they make more of a statement with the glasses than that guy. That guy's got kind of a thin rim for a professor, right? They make a statement with that sort of thing.
Let's see.
All right. You guys ready for the answer?
Let's see, two-a-days Dan.
All right. He is a lefty liberal, this guy.
Oh!
Lefty.
Called it.
Yep.
Wolf
nailed
in
it.
sheep's clothing.
Yep. That guy would have me totally bamboozled.
All right. Next one we got here.
What do you got, two-a-days?
All right. What do you guys think?
The secret to this, Will, is that Smug, any face he looks at, he just yells lib.
Yeah. If it's not a pair of Oakleys with a selfie in your truck, lib.
Yeah. It's true.
All right, that guy for the audience listening on audio, I'm going 56, mostly brown, black hair, a little gray in there. Very, very slender face. This guy looks like he might exercise. That makes me think he's a lib. And he's either How about this? He's liberal or he's a UK conservative. That's kind of where I am on this guy.
One.
So I'm assuming he's American.
That's a great call.
It's funny you say that. He looks like a Brit to me.
Yeah.
He really looks like he's British.
It's so accurate.
We're now bulllining. Well, it's a limey, clearly. It's like, what are we talking about here? I think that guy, I don't know, he kind of looks like an iBanker to me, which, again, you cut two ways.
Limey.
Right? They're sort of like conservative as long as it's their pocketbook, but like, and everything else very liberal. Is moderate enough? Can you say like center right or center left?
There's no such thing.
It's just lib or not lib?
No such thing. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, what do you got two-a-days?
Okay.
What is he?
I'm going to go I'll go lib.
This guy is a right winger. Righty.
Yes. Wow.
Yep.
A right winger.
Maybe relatively speaking.
Is he from the UK?
Man,
I don't know these guys' backgrounds, so I just know that if they're left or right here. So we're doing, that's the way we're going here.
Okay.
I can't wait for these people to start
betting you
calling
picked
in,
a
Will,
Brit.
and being like, "You bastard! What are you doing with my face?"
Let's do one more. Throw one more up there two-a-days. All right.
Conservative.
That's okay. Bad choice. We all can see the banner in the background.
I know him, and he's a
can't.
lib.
I would have gone conservative.
All right. We'll go to the next one. What about this guy?
That was a conservative with the Media Research
It
Center.
was. Yes, it was.
The previous one for everyone watching or listening was Media Research Center. He was conservative. He looked conservative, by the way, but the banner gave away. This guy is interesting. Now, this guy, I'm going 53. His face is suffering from inflammation like a lot of us, so meaning he enjoys his cocktail and his red meat, a little bit of swollen eyes. I bet he's fun. I think I like this guy. Either way.
He looks fun.
It was big of him to take the Oakleys off for the picture. Yeah. I say conservative.
Duncan?
I think so too. I'm not all the way, but
Oh gosh, I don't know. I mean, it's sort of a strange picture. Is this like a profile picture or something? I'm trying to think of the profile of the person who would choose to make this the picture.
Can I just offer one observation here? It's a little bit difficult to tell because it's so zoomed in on him, but I think if you zoom out, he's wearing a jacket that he got from work or he got from his kids or something.
A working class conservative?
That his wife doesn't love, but he wears it because it's his, and he doesn't care.
Yeah.
He's like, well, it's my coat. What am I supposed to wear?
you know what?
I see the facial hair too.
That's what I say. Duncan, before you go, I see you have an eye for observation. I think we're all overlooking the obvious. Dude's got a goatee. That's a goatee,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Am I seeing that poorly?
Gotta be.
He's conservative.
Gotta be.
That's a hard no. This guy is a lefty. It's very.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I called it. I called it.
The goatee throws you off for sure.
He looks like Zelensky. He's a lib.
Jesus.
Who's doing the goatee
I'm really
these days?
bad at this.
That was very popular in the 90s. I don't know where the goatee is popular today.
Prison? Sorry.
All right, let's move. Let's move to TikTok. All right, so the government has moved to force divestiture of TikTok from the Chinese Communist Party, from ByteDance. Various parties are rumored to be interested. Maybe Microsoft. I think people are saying Microsoft because they just survived an antitrust suit as it is, so they're feeling a little emboldened. Maybe they go for TikTok. They don't have something like this in their portfolio. Kevin O'Leary, which I didn't know the Shark Tank money was that good. And wow. Steve Mnuchin, former Treasury Secretary under Donald Trump. But the big question is, what are you really buying? Because I think you don't get to buy the algorithm, right? The algorithm stays in China, so you're buying a brand?
Yeah, well, I assume there's a whole lot of hard assets that come along with it. I mean, there was like some 300 people who work there. They clearly have some programming and whatnot for the infrastructure for the app in and of itself. But I mean, look, just as at the outset, well, I think we all are in agreement on this. I'm actually, my only disappointment about this is that it took this long to get this done. There has been so much evidence, so much intelligence, so much documentation of China manipulating algorithms in this country to serve our kids, absolute propaganda. that poisons the mind of people throughout this young people throughout this country. And like, if you get just even a whiff of that, you'd think it would be the first action that you'd want to do from a national security standpoint. But like forever, the argument was, the kids love it. Oh, the kids, they love sticking forks in electric sockets too. But like, we try not to have them do that.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not the app that's the problem. It's where the data goes and who's manipulating that to serve content in a very real way. And that's very clearly what was happening.
Yeah. I mean, I think what you're buying here is priceless. It's the network effect. It's the same reason that, even though the algorithm changed on Twitter and the ownership changed, you still see a significant portion of the movers and shakers have remained there because that network was already in place. And everyone knows if you want to have a discussion, you go to Twitter. And in the same way for that short form video, everyone already knows TikTok is the destination. I think, honestly, Microsoft would be an ideal place. Like, if they specialize in making Office software, that that data is not going to the Chinese government. And I don't think it'd be hard to implement a algorithm that works just as well, if not better, and doesn't give the data to the Chinese government. I mean, you have engineers at Instagram who do this daily. It'd be pretty easy to poach a significant number of them to go to the most popular video platform.
Are any of you guys concerned that it's a Trojan horse, that now you've let the government into the tent, the camel's nose into the tent, and next comes X, next comes whoever else is on the persona non grata list in D.C.?
I'm really not, because the primary argument against TikTok was that it was controlled by the Chinese military. And some people say, well, what about the First Amendment? Last time I checked, the First Amendment doesn't apply to the Chinese military.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's a much different argument to make that, the government should take over X because they just made moves on TikTok. They moved on TikTok because it was Chinese. That's
the only way to get a legislative outcome out of this. But, look, your point about government meddling around in private businesses is one that's been going on for quite some time. That's what the FTC does for a living.
No, that's a good point.
And rejecting mergers and getting involved in businesses. Hell, we saw what the government was doing with all the social media organizations during COVID. That piece has been going on for quite some time. But I think you're exactly right, John. This is a totally separate case that deals specifically with a foreign adversary and their ability to serve content to the most vulnerable population in America.
All right, I want to make sure you guys are completely plugged into the news. I know you do a good job there at Ruthless of making sure you're on top of the latest stories, but the ever-evolving biography of Joe Biden requires almost a daily update. So, with some patience here, I'm going to walk you guys through the latest update on Joe Biden's CV. All right, two-a-days, Dan, take it away.
Besides, I used to drive an 18-wheeler. You know what I did? That's exactly right.
All right, so he used to drive an 18-wheeler, fellas. What in his brain, do you think it's just like, hell with it, I'm going to let all the lies fly? Or did one time he sit in the cab of a semi-truck and he told himself, and he's rationalized that now, I used to drive an 18-wheeler?
It's so often, right? It's almost every day. The cannibal thing last week, we love the cannibal story on Ruthless. But he would talk about how he was raised in a black church, that he was raised in a Jewish synagogue, that
Puerto Rican.
He was Puerto Rican, or
yes.
It's every single time he sees somebody that he thinks that he can identify, he just says, well, I'm that.
Yeah, I think it also has to do with his advanced age and obvious problems with his brain. Like, Joe Biden, since the beginning of his political career, has been an unrepentant liar. Like his entire career, but his filter was just a little bit better because he had more of his mental faculties, So I think we all see this as people enter that advanced age. It's like, Mima no longer has a filter. You got to be careful when you take her to a restaurant in public. And what you're seeing now is a guy who has always been a liar, and now he has no filter. So he just says whatever comes to mind. The synapses don't fire.
Really nice to have him in the Oval Office.
Yeah,
that's terrific.
Yeah,
but isn't it worth celebrating that we have the first Jewish Puerto Rican truck driver in the White House?
He survived cannibalism.
Irish, Jewish, Irish, Puerto Rican, raised in a black church, truck driver.
How many barriers can you break through?
to play your greatest hit, who, by the way, his family has been eaten by cannibals. Watch.
And he became an Army Air Corps before the Air Force came along. He flew those single-engine planes as reconnaissance over war zones. And he got shot down in New Guinea, and they never found the body because there were a lot of cannibals for real in that part of New Guinea.
It never gets old.
Aren't we at odds with New Guinea now because of this?
Yeah, no, they're taking great exception. The absolute best part of this was when Peter Doocy asked Karine Jean-Pierre about it. And she gave like a very much a, how dare you?
Yeah.
How dare you question any of it? The man lost his life. He's like, yeah, but not by cannibals.
Oh. You're right. She's good. No, I mean, she's bad, but she's bad in a way that makes it good and fun.
Makes
and
our
by the
jobs
way,
easier.
here's the latest now, or more fun. To Duncan's, I think, point in the end, an unrepentant liar who now has no control of his faculties. Roll the final tape.
Imagine what we can do next. 4 more years. Pause. 4 more years. Pause. 4 more years. 4 more years.
4 more years. Pause. He read the prompter all the way through the instructions.
The full Ron Burgundy. Yeah. Right? I mean, it's just amazing. We've gotten to the point where he's doing the Ron Burgundy routine. We have a bit on the program where we talk about the guy that we've affectionately called Bracket Man, which is the guy who has to put out the White House transcripts of what the president says on a day-to-day basis. And if you notice, on all White House transcripts, there will be brackets. And the brackets are what they're trying to decipher was said. Right? Sometimes they just say like inaudible, but it's in brackets. It clearly was not inaudible that he said pause there, but like Bracket Man's got to get energized, right? He's got to get in there and he's got to change that transcript, make sure people understand what's said here.
Right. All right. Before we say goodbye to each other today, let's have an observation, a question. So I've watched throughout the program here for the last 30, 40 minutes. And Josh and Duncan are similar to me. Your desk, it's at a nice, reasonable height, but you often end up with your hands up high because you put your elbows on the table. Smug and John, I don't know where you got your arms, but I've received a lot of criticism lately for hand placement. I'm the Ricky Bobby of podcasting. I don't know what to do, and I end up staring at them. They're here at eye level, and I talk and I stare at my hands like I'm on the spectrum here of political. And I don't mean the political spectrum. I don't know. And Duncan does what my only other alternative is to grab the mic and fondle my microphone, which I see is something that Duncan does as well. It's a mystery with the desk placement. I don't know how.
Well,
I don't know
because I have
Smug and John have figured it out.
Hands. You know, I'm like Johnny Bench over here.
Also, I really appreciate that Will's taking his own career in his own hands here by asking where Smug's hands are on a day-to-day basis. Like, this is, I like the Will Cain Show. Let's not threaten our ability to air this show. Yeah.
I just say, I think me and Ashbrook were raised
by the way,
in, like, hard homes that, like, you sit quietly, your hands at your side, you sit straight, you look right at the camera.
Not me. I'm a fidgeter. By the way, Duncan, hold those hands up. Let me see those manly hands. What are we looking at? Are we looking at 10s? Are these 9.5s? Would this get you drafted? You know, that's the whole thing, right?
Get
like
me
tonight's
the OJ
the NFL
gloves.
draft.
We'll find out.
You know, they measure these quarterbacks' hands, and it's a big deal. You know, like
it's a big deal.
Jared Goff, small hands. Panned out for him anyway. But, there's like, I can't remember what it is, like 9 1/4, and I think it's from pinky to thumb. I can't remember what it is, but, yeah, if you have small hands, you're dropping in the draft.
It's been a big problem for quarterbacks. I don't think anybody's got it this year, though, right? Wasn't that the big thing with
Kenny Pickett?
Kenny Pickett.
Yeah,
Kenny Pickett dropped, and maybe they were right.
There's always a complaint about Joe Burrow that he's got small hands, but it seems to work out for him.
Yeah, it didn't work out last year.
It does. All right, do me a favor as the last thing. I'm going to review this here in about 5 minutes as my final segment here on the Will Cain Show. I'm going to talk about the NFL draft, and I'm going to talk about I'm going to no longer say who recommended this to me, but I watched this show it's in the UK called Naked Attraction. Has anybody heard of it?
I don't think so, but it sounds compelling.
I think you guys should do a review. And next time we're together, I want your thoughts. They take a dating contestant. They put 6 people in a box. The slide comes up. They first reveal the bottom half. And I'm talking no blurs. Everything, okay? And you make your judgments, and you boot one person from the panel of 6 based upon your judgment of the bottom half. Then they reveal up to the neck, okay? The whole nother round of judgment, boot another person. Then you get to see the face. Then you get to talk. And I know it sounds like complete trash because it is complete trash. But there is some fascinating things to take away from this as well. You only have to do an episode or 2. But you will come away with some new thoughts about humanity. That's one of my favorite things. You will have interesting original thoughts about humanity.
It sounds like the first authentic dating show I've ever heard of.
Yeah.
I love it. We'll do that for you, Will. We'll get on that.
All right. Do 1 or 2 episodes. We'll talk about it next time when we have a cross between Ruthless and the Will Cain Show, which I'm loving. Thank you guys so much. Josh Holmes, Michael Duncan, Comfortably Smug, John Ashbrook. Thank you guys. I love it. Love having you on. Thank you so much.
You're the best. Thanks, bud.
Thanks so much.
Good seeing you.
All right, there they go. Ruthless Podcast. Make sure you go wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, and subscribe to Ruthless. They have fun. They break down topics seriously, and they're dudes. And I'm staring at my hands once again. Right before we get into the highs and the lows, NFL Draft, and Naked Attraction. Next on the Will Cain Show.
I'm Dana Perino, and this is Perino on Politics.
Dana Perino, co-host of The Five and co-anchor of America's Newsroom, returns to Fox News Audio with a brand new podcast, Perino on Politics. Listeners of Everything Will Be Okay will be thrilled by the return of a familiar voice, but with a fresh spin as Dana guides audiences through the 2024 election cycle. Make sure you subscribe to this series wherever you download podcasts and leave a rating and review.
Did you hear the news? Now you can. With instant updates from Fox News for Amazon Alexa. Breaking stories and top headlines, the economy, and so much more. Brought to you by Fox News, America's #1 cable news network. Plus, setup couldn't be easier because everything's ready to go in the app. Just say,
Alexa, play news from Fox.
In Fox News.
It's the latest when you need it, on demand from Fox News and Amazon Alexa.
I'm Emily Campagno, host of the Fox True Crime Podcast. January 26th, 1988 was a cold and suspiciously quiet night at the Indianapolis Police Department. But the frigid night took a chilling turn with news of a triple homicide. This week, I'm joined by retired Sergeant Judd Green for a look back at this savage case. Available now on Apple, Spotify, and FoxNewsPodcasts.com.
All right, here we go. Big night, big weekend in entertainment. High and low. NFL Draft, first round tonight. Second and third round, I believe it's still both rounds on Friday night, and then 4 through 7 on Saturday. And when they take a break, the guys of the Will Cain Show will be reviewing Naked Attraction. It is the Will Cain Show, streaming live at foxnews.com, Fox News YouTube channel, Fox News Facebook page. Please hit subscribe, leave a review, leave a comment on YouTube, at Apple, or Spotify. So it is probably my favorite event of the year. I mean, honestly, I like it more than the Super Bowl. It is the NFL Draft. 32 teams, 32 fan bases, completely filled with hope. It's like shopping for men. And I, for one, do my research on the biggest sales, the best trends in fashion when it comes to the NFL Draft. I'm talking about I do every mock draft simulator. This last weekend, I read 300 player profile breakdowns by Dane Brugler. I read his other publication, The Beast, which is, God, it's everybody in the draft. Because then I formulate exactly who I want the Cowboys to get. I know the positions that they need. By the way, offensive line, running back, defensive tackle, linebacker. And you got to figure it out. It's like playing a puzzle. It's a game of how can I fill these needs at this rounds in the draft and so forth. And it's just so much fun. I mean, I don't know how to explain it. And by the way, am I alone? Let me go to the control room. Let me go back to the Willisha crew. Young James, Establishment James, Two-A-Days Dan, Tinfoil Pat. You guys like the draft as well, right? Are you guys all in on it?
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay. Like it's, I mean, would you say this is fair, right? Probably. I don't want to put it exactly on par. How about this? Not as good as a game where your team is playing, but better than a game where your team is not playing. I mean, I'd rather it than a random NFL game, a random NBA game. I wouldn't like it better than the Mavericks playing.
I agree. I mean, it brings an element. It gives you hope. It gives you, you look forward to something. As a Packer fan, we haven't had much luck, which is okay. But, I totally agree with you. I don't know. What do you say, James?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably better than, say, like a mid-August regular season baseball game or a mid-season basketball game. Maybe not better than a Sunday, but if it's a Sunday, that doesn't matter. I'll take the draft because there's meaning to it.
I'd agree.
All right, James, you're a Pats fan. Make it quick. Who do you want? Like, what are you going to be excited about tonight? What do you want?
Either Drake May or they get just a stupid haul of draft picks for going back a few picks.
I don't know about Drake May, man.
Okay. Quarterback or trade back and get a big haul. All right, Packers fan, Two-A-Days Dan.
Offensive lineman. Need it. Got to protect Jordan Love. Let's go. Go, Pack, go.
Yeah, that's not as fun. Like, that's where I am as a Cowboys fan. I want an offensive lineman as well. We have to have an offensive lineman. Those drafts aren't quite as fun, like when you're in the market for a receiver or a quarterback. But here's what I'd look for tonight. It's interesting. Almost everybody's projecting 4 quarterbacks in the top 10. Jay Glazer of Fox Sports was here on the Will Cain Show, said, not so sure that J.J. McCarthy's going to have this big market where there's a run on him, pushing him as the 4th quarterback into the top 10. But you're guaranteed to see Caleb Williams of USC, Drake May of North Carolina, and Jaden Daniels of LSU probably going within the top 5 picks. What was fascinating, though, whether or not J.J. McCarthy makes his way into the top 10, he probably doesn't fall, J.J. McCarthy of Michigan, he probably doesn't fall below 11, where the Vikings are picking. And even at that, what's fascinating is you may then see, and this will help Two-A-Days Dan and myself get the offensive lineman we might want in the 20s, is that I am increasingly believing that Michael Penix is going to go in the top 15. So that's 5 quarterbacks in the top 15. And at that point, it's going to put a lot of pressure on every other team that wants a quarterback to jump up and get Bo Nix. And maybe they will, maybe they won't. But the Broncos are reportedly interested in Bo Nix of Oregon. So it's possible there's a run of 6 quarterbacks in the first 20 picks, which would be perfect for the Cowboys, perfect for the Packers, and pushing offensive linemen. If you're like the Bills and you want a wide receiver or any defensive player, down to teams that need them. And I kind of think that's what's going to happen tonight. I mean, often you'll see some quarterbacks slide, but I don't know. I have this feeling we're going to get 5 and maybe 6 quarterbacks really pushing guys that you want deeper down into the draft. Either way, we'll be all over it next week on the Will Cain Show. You can check out Cain on Sports. My Friday guest will be Craig Carton. We are going to record before the draft later this evening, but we'll break down what teams could do and the best players on the Friday edition, Cain on Sports, with famed New York sports broadcaster Chris Carton. All right, on the other end of the spectrum, the lows, as I mentioned, naked attraction. I just told the guys of Ruthless exactly how this dating show works. Listen to me. Don't go home and tell your wife or your husband, Will said watch this. I did not tell you to watch this. It is not, it's not pornography. It's also not something you should feel comfortable watching on an airplane at all, okay? You're going to see everything, okay? And yeah, you're going to be like, what is this trash? But my favorite thing about any piece of entertainment is if it makes me think in some way about something. And my favorite thing is thinking about people, humanity. And Here is the redeem. I'm going to say this ahead of time because the guys, Tinfoil Pat, Young Establishment James, and Two-A-Days Dan are going to watch. They've promised to at least watch an episode or two this weekend. Here's what you come away with, okay? Here's the redeeming thing. People are not very pretty. They're just not. Now, you could say, well, what kind of people would go on this? And you're right, largely the unemployed or those that are unconcerned with unemployment. It's also the UK. I mean, not a bastion of fitness. But what the redeeming part of it is that Instagram and social media has made you think that everybody out there is perfect. It really, through filters and poses, and I think there's a lot. For example, I think this is a thing. I think that sixes have lost the ability to find sixes because Instagram has made sixes think that the whole market is full of nines and tens. And you can never settle, therefore, for a fellow six. And what you realize in watching this show, and you see everything about people, and they talk about it, and they break down physical attributes, there ain't too many nines and tens floating around out there. Not when you take out the filters and mess up the pose. And all of a sudden you start realizing, like, it kind of is, I don't know, like we should all walk around the world with a little more self-confidence because you can't be comparing yourself to the Instagram models and the fitness experts and the fraud of it all. It's not real. And I don't know, that's the one thing I do like about this. It's so real. Like, oh, that's what people look like. It's not very good, but it's real. And it is fascinating how people will, I mean, the whole game of it, the fun is what would you do, you know? Like, that's what I do in any of these shows, in Love is Blind or, you know, I don't watch The Bachelor, but that would be the fun of it, I would guess. It's like, no, pick Cheryl, don't pick Cindy. You know, you're like, oh, I'd eliminate this one, or I'd choose it. We're all doing that, and so you kind of do that. And you think it's obvious in your brain, but what's fascinating is the curveball that the contestant will throw you, you know? By the way, obesity is an interesting, you know, curveball in the entire thing. Like, the obese contestants do get eliminated, but they don't get eliminated first because I think everybody's doing well, I can't do that one. I can't eliminate her first because what does that make me look like? And there's a few other lame ducks in the panel, so you know you can pick them off. They'll never make the finals. So you keep that around, a virtue signal, and then, you know, it all washes out in the end. But what is surprising is the way that contestants do choose sometimes. They don't go with the obvious ones that I think, whoa, clearly Blue is the number one draft pick. And they don't. For their own peculiar, subjective, taste-oriented, human reasons. I don't know. There's something about that. Trust me, there's like 10 seasons of it. It ain't good enough that I'm burning through the seasons. But you watch one, you're like, kind of fascinating the way people behave. Kind of fascinating the way people really are, the way they really look. That's my best to make something that is trash redeeming. Naked Attraction. That's going to do it for me today here on The Will Cain Show. Go enjoy the NFL Draft. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy The Will Cain Show whenever you can. Live at 12 o'clock Eastern Time at foxnews.com, the Fox YouTube channel, the Fox News Facebook page, or whenever you like by subscribing at Apple, Spotify, or YouTube. I'll see you next time.